we're going to move on now, and I promised Phil that he just had to wait for a little while for the answer to his question. So in our water cohort, which started very much focused on water, we've somehow got a group that are looking at land, which is quite interesting in itself. But our group that we're going to present next are looking at the regeneration of post-industrial landscapes and what kind of things do we need to do to consider post-industrial landscapes and what can they be used for. So I'm delighted to welcome Carol Driver and Carol Harris from Carol Harris and Sam Deely from Welsh Government, and Natalie Sargent from the Coalfields Regeneration Trust. So come on, guys, thank you very much.
I hope we get the mics right as we're trying to sort ourselves out. We've got mics everywhere now, so I think we'll be fine. So Pnawn da, good afternoon, everyone. My name's Carol Harris and I work in the coal tip safety team in Welsh Government. Katie's very kindly introduced my colleagues who are also in the cohort with me. And also working with us, we have, and unfortunately they're unable to be here today, we have Paul Smith from Bridgend County Council, Adrian Jones from the Innovation Team in Welsh Government, and also Rob Sullivan from the Coal Authority, who have also been working with us on this challenge. Our first question, I'm going to hope our slides have appeared. I just want to say the slides are prototypes, so if it goes wrong, we won't go back to the start because I know everybody wants their lunch, so we will plough ahead. So I briefly outlined who we are, and we thought it would be useful to describe a little bit about why we joined CEIC. I think we also made the same mistake as a previous presenter in that we thought it was about cake, and we have eaten a lot of cake through the journey, but we have found it a really rewarding experience since we joined in March. It gave us an opportunity to explore what we think is a really huge challenge in terms of looking at post-industrial sites in communities. And also it was an opportunity for us to learn new skills, meet different people, share experience, and also share best practice. Carol and I were both new to the coal tip safety team back earlier this year, so this was a really great opportunity for us to build our knowledge base and learn as we move through our challenge. So it took us quite a long time to define our challenge, working through the CEIC schedule of events, and also sort of meeting in between the events, which we tried to do as much as we could. We also all brought sort of different perspectives to the problem and the challenge, our different backgrounds, our skills and experience, but we were able to kind of bring all of this to the table to kind of help us focus on how we were going to take this forward. So we decided to focus on post-industrial communities in Wales, and our rationale behind this was that for many years these communities have not had the tools to empower them to take ownership of assets and to regenerate areas to meet the needs of the communities in a sustainable and greener way. There's lots of information out there, there's lots of past experience, previous case studies, and I think what we found through talking to each other and our wider cohort was what are the blockers, what's stopping these projects kind of follow through and succeeding. So our challenge was to when we ultimately defined it, was to undertake a sort of scoping project or a discovery phase project, we're calling it, to inform the development of a web-based information tool which stakeholders, communities can utilize to access information and to scope out what the potential is for industrial sites and what could be done on them, but also to identify sort of blockers and also to signpost where people could go next for further information and how to build their projects. The toolbox basically would be web-based and provide almost like a sort of tick box of issues and considerations to be taken into account, and also, as I've said, identify potential blockers at the earliest opportunity, and to sort of take into consideration as many issues as quickly as possible. As I've said, there's a lot of information out there. Natalie is always telling us that people can't find it. So we try to listen, and also how difficult it is to access it and what information you can rely on. So it's almost like creating a one-stop shop which can be used, and also providing that information on potential next steps. When we started thinking about our challenge, we were thinking big, and whilst there's nothing wrong with being ambitious, we were very conscious of the resource and time that we had. CEIC has helped us to refine this into what we feel is a more achievable task, and something that we can sort of take forward beyond the CEIC programme itself. So this leads me on to our journey through the CEIC programme, and I'm going to hand over to my colleague Carol to go through that slide.
I'm really glad I don't need that. I'm rubbish for them. So I'm just going to quickly go through. Oh, sorry, Carol. I'm going to go through the journey. It hasn't all been smooth sailing. Carol and I had a car accident in the middle, right at the beginning. So our journey to get to CEIC, certainly not that smooth. We had to get to know each other, and even though 3 of us are in the same division, we're all new, and 3 of us are, well, 2 of us are very Welsh Government trained, and getting to know everyone else's styles and how they work and what they can do and what knowledge they bring. And then defining our challenge, I think everyone said it at the beginning, you want to solve the world. We wanted to get rid of all of the coal tips that there are straight away and solve it. But it's working through all our risks and our constraints that then got us to designing something where we thought we'd look at what our solutions to the problem were. So we had quite a lot of discussions on that, lots of working through what we could do, using some of the tools from CEIC, like the Mira board. Yeah, we used the Mira board to look at some of the examples. We used a lot of the exercises and the tools as part of the CEIC process, although we learned lots of things we can't do, which is we still can't do a grid from a piece of paper. And then on to delivery. So Natalie and Sam will talk a bit about what we're going to end up with, but I think our main learning is we can't do everything. We've only got until the end of the year, so I think we're probably going to get to a stage where we've got a fully formed idea with an aspiration then of moving it forward. Thank you to Sam.
Thanks, Carol. What have we achieved so far? We'll go back to defining a challenge, which I think is our greatest achievement to date. We continue to identify stakeholders, which an event like this may hopefully be beneficial for, and we're welcome to discuss any topics with regards to kind of post-industrial landscapes and their regeneration. We've outlined key constraints, risk and issues, which I think Carol kind of outlined, but yeah, that's something that we were very conscious of, particularly with the experiences specifically of our colleague Rob Sullivan from the Coal Authority, and again with Natalie with their experiences and being able to kind of introduce us to case studies which were particularly relevant. We now have an outline for our discovery phase work, which we are continuing to work through. This includes mapping of users and user needs, looking at whether potential housing associations, developers, community groups, local and national government, starting to identify data sources, which again has proved to be, I think, one of the most significant challenges specifically in this area. And then we're thinking about the longer term and how the tool will work, be maintained, and ownership, I think, really going forward, which I think was something that was expressed by other cohorts. And that's kind of building a roadmap for the future. So beyond where our CEIC program finishes, which is at the end of this year, I believe, but obviously, where it goes thereafter. We're planning to develop a prototype utilizing a previous developed tool, thanks to colleague Paul from Bridgend, and that will be the basis for further testing as we go forward.
Not me. Next. There we are. Okay, so in terms of what we've learned, I think the one key thing is being able to allocate time to this. All of us come from really busy backgrounds, really busy organizations. And yes, it isn't, it's once a month with the CEIC cohort, but what we've actually found really valuable is actually allocating time outside of that. just a quick, it might be a virtual meeting or whatever it is, that just to, throw around a few ideas. And that has really helped us sort of hone in terms of what our challenge is going forward, because, as my colleague said, it is huge. There are so many potential opportunities, and trying to get a scoping tool that could cover absolutely everything is just impossible. So this scoping tool will be something that will be built on as time goes on, as more data is fed into it. And we've just discovered, just being in our cohort now, the amount of data that already exists. We're all working in silos, we're all producing these reports, and they're all very, very useful. But for Joe Bloggs, who's in the community, who, your first group absolutely nailed that. When a community group comes up to you and says, I want to do something on that piece of land, and nobody can tell them whether it's possible, whether it's feasible, how to go about it, we're stopping a lot of potential opportunities from happening. So I think that was one of the key things, really. We all brought all this different information together and saw how it could actually help inform the way forward. And one of the things as well is we've had to adapt, we've had to learn and change, and not be, and I think one of the key things, really, and it's something that I think we all bring, is that there is a lot of failure out there as well, but actually we learn from failure. And so what we should be doing is not just talking about all the good stuff that works, but actually what didn't work and why it didn't work, and pick it apart and start again. And it's that circular motion again. So I think that's one of the key things for us. And obviously going forward, as Sam mentioned then, we're like the other group, we're going to need someone to host that scoping tool. That hasn't been identified yet. We've identified a huge myriad of partners and stakeholders, but again, there's people around this table here who could all feed into that. I mean, you mentioned, is it farming was mentioned earlier? Agricultural use for some of this land is something. So industrial land was mentioned earlier, and how we would go about doing a community growing project on that. Well, there's lots of examples there where we've had, aquaponics, hydroponics, raised beds, there's lots and lots of potential there. So I think that's something now that we want to, really excited, still really motivated after all this time. And now we've got our challenge and we've got a way forward. And I think, this isn't going to be the last of it. I think, we just need to sort how we're going to resource it going forward.
Okay, so unfortunately, again, we have run out of time for questions. But I do want to say one small piece of reflection on everybody's presentation so far, which is that we often talk about the circular economy, and when we talk about circular economy in business, we talk about the economic value that it creates. But I think the presentations today have demonstrated the sheer amount of social capital that can be generated through thinking about the circular economy. And I'm speaking for everybody, I think, on the CEIC team. I'm really proud of our teams for what they've done. So thanks, everybody.